long-term good of the United States and the free world, I think it's something that we have to be prepared to do. It's very different. We've never had a president who's had the courage to use all the tools in his toolbox, and I think that we actually have to be there to support him.
All right, welcome back to the show. I am Ross Kaminsky, broadcasting from the Western Governors Association annual meeting here in Vail, Colorado, and very pleased to be joined by Governor David
I think my colleague Mark Meadows is going to be speaking later on the show. The American people here in North Carolina are tired of them re-prosecuting a settled matter. No collusion, no obstruction.
Absolutely.
What we're going to be talking about as we move forward to the summer session is confirming more conservative judges, trying to get our colleagues on the other side of the aisle to work on regulatory reforms that make sense. We're working with the administration. A lot of the things that we'll do will be supporting the administration as they continue a great track record on regulatory reform, taking cost out of doing business in the United States and attracting foreign investment, which is a key driver to our GDP growth.
So tell us what you've been focusing on, because I'm interested in.
You too, Maria.
Senator Tom Tillis.
These are things that I think affect Colorado.
Thanks to Judicial Watch, we now have even more evidence in corruption and incompetence at the highest levels of our
approached the chairmanship and was looking for what issue I would want to embrace as the chair's initiative. I was struck, you know, we in Hawaii, we're the most geographically isolated state in the country, and so certainly we think that we have trouble with invasive species that are unlike other states. And I was really surprised to learn that every Western state has challenges with invasive species. You know, I forget that all the states are connected by waterways and roadways that transport invasive species into each of our states, and that we have that challenge of how we can keep bad species out of our states. And I think most importantly, how do we manage and control when we identify invasive species, what action we can take as a state, as a nation, how do we deal with the states that border our states to help in the effort to keep invasives from spreading throughout the country and the network.
In Colorado, we have things like certain invasive plants. We've got the emerald ash borer, which is a very dangerous bug destroying a lot of trees. In some waterways, we've got mussels, a problem in a lot of the country. What are the key things in Hawaii that scare you? And even maybe by category. I mean, are you most worried about plants? Are you most worried about bugs? Are you most worried about stuff in the water? All of it?
Absolutely. We're worried with all of them. And like I said, so that's why I thought that it was a unique problem. But as I drilled down and got more information from the other states, I saw how all of us are struggling with different species, but they are impacting our states in the same way. In Hawaii, we have a number of things that we're concerned about. Insects like little red fire ants have been introduced on Hawaii Island that is spreading and a real threat to agriculture all across the state. It's an introduced species, and it's become established on Hawaii Island, and we definitely want to prevent it from spreading to the other islands. We also deal with invasive snakes. You know, we have no snakes in the islands, and the brown tree snake and the activity between Hawaii and Guam is a real concern, and we've been fighting to keep snakes out of the islands. You know, we have a number of endangered birds, and snakes are really could devastate our bird population in the islands, and so clearly we are working to keep those out. Wow. We do have invasive sea animals that have been introduced into Hawaii. We have seaweed that have been introduced into our environment and is wreaking havoc in our bays and in our oceans. Wow. That we definitely want to keep track of. And then I do know we have for our native forests what we call rapid ohia death, which is a fungus that have been introduced into our forests and are killing our trees. is similar to the concern here in Colorado that is impacting your forests. You know, it's an introduced fungus. It gets spread from forest to forest by beetles and other insects that bore into the trees and carry the fungus from tree to tree.
I'll tell you what, those snakes. So I grew up on Guam for a few years. 'Cause my dad was in the Navy at the time. And when I was there, those snakes weren't there yet. And then they got introduced to Guam, and I didn't know they're getting to Hawaii now. Yeah. They're not poisonous, but they're very aggressive.
Absolutely, and they wipe out the bird population.
Yeah.
So we don't have any snakes introduced to the islands, but we are very vigilant in all of the transport, ocean transport and air transport that come into the state from Guam.
Yeah.
We definitely have a very aggressive inspection program to keep them out of the islands.
Yeah. So let me ask you another thing that you've been working on, I think, as chairman of WGA, clean energy kinds of initiatives. This is particularly big in Colorado, especially, Jared Polis, who I'm sure you know quite well at this point, is very big on this stuff. And Governor Hickenlooper was to some degree as well. So what are you seeing there in terms of clean energy? And myself as kind of a fiscal conservative sort of guy, how do you think, and WGA being a bipartisan, organization, how can we put together plans that can get us towards cleaner stuff without needing too much government subsidy and taxpayer spending?
Absolutely. For us in the islands, we're committed to 100% clean renewable energy, and we see it as a transformation of our economy and of our community. As you may know, Hawaii is the most oil-dependent state in the country because of our isolation, and we don't have any oil resources. So 5 years ago, we were importing and generating fossil fuels to generate more than 90% of our energy. And we've been committed to clean renewable energy for electricity as the first milestone. We became the first state in the country to commit to 100% clean energy for electricity by 2045. And we've made significant progress. We're ahead of schedule. By 2020, we should be over, we've gone from more than 90% dependent to 30% of our energy will come from new renewable sources by 2020. A lot of that is solar and battery and wind energy. We also have the potential for geothermal energy on Hawaii Island with the volcanoes that can be a renewable resource for us. And we are excited about the possibility of being 100% clean, renewable, the first state to commit and then implement, hopefully.
You think it's doable?
Yes, I absolutely. Technology has really been very helpful. We are seeing for the first time in the state of Hawaii where our solar and battery projects are able to deliver clean energy to us, to our community, at below the cost of generating electricity through fossil fuels. And so for the first time, it's a win-win, both our commitment to the environment as well as reducing the cost to our residents for electricity.
Yeah, and that makes sense. And given your geography, I assume you have the highest cost for fossil fuel of any state, probably.
And our cost for energy and electricity is the highest in the country as well.
Yeah.
And so for the first time, we are seeing the price of solar panels and batteries have dropped to the level that it actually will save our residents money by converting to clean renewable energy.
That makes sense. My special guest is Governor David Ige of Hawaii, the outgoing chairman of Western Governors Association. I know you have to go in a minute. I want to ask you one non-WGA question, but an issue that you've been dealing with, and my listeners, Denver in particular, dealing with the issue of homelessness. Sure. We actually had a mayoral election in Denver just a week ago, and homelessness was a huge issue. And I know it's an issue on Hawaii. And one of the things that kind of jumped out to me about it is it's not that easy to get to Hawaii, and especially if you're homeless and don't have a lot of money. Right? And some people think, and sometimes I think, well, you get more homeless in Denver because you subsidize it and you make it a little too comfortable, a little too easy, and people move here and because it attracts them to the subsidies and all that. But homeless people can't easily get to Hawaii. And
No,
you've
they
been seeing
can't.
increasing numbers in Hawaii too. So that can't really be the explanation for Hawaii.
No, we do have a few who migrate to Hawaii because they think that it'll be easier to survive there, but that's not the case. You know, we had and still continue to have the highest per capita number of homeless in our state. I think it's a combination of the home prices in the islands and the availability of affordable housing for our community. But I'm proud of the fact that for the third consecutive year, we've had a reduction in the annual count of homelessness in our state. And so our programs that are really focused on producing homes for our residents and affordable homes. You know, we've committed state lands for affordable rental projects throughout the state. I have a goal that I'm on track to hit of producing 10,000 homes in Hawaii at all price levels, but focused on affordable mostly. That we will hit that goal by 2020. And we are making state lands available to nonprofit and other developers who focus on affordable rental projects so that we can increase the housing supply for affordable for our communities.
Is some of this public-private partnership? Or
Absolutely. So it is in public-private partnership. We have focused on programs that work. So the homeless counts have been coming down because we're focused on permanent supportive housing. We've been working with private sector partners. We've made state resources available with federal tax credits, state tax credits. We've committed hundreds of millions of dollars in infrastructure that enable affordable housing projects all across the state. You know, it really is, homelessness is a challenge that requires all hands on deck. It requires every aspect in our community to be focused on battling the challenge of homelessness. And I've been proud of the response. You know, we have had tremendous response from our communities trying to find community solutions that work in every community. We see homeless all across the state, and we do believe that it will take everyone in our community to defeat homelessness in a way that enhances the community in general.
Yeah, well, I wanted to ask you about that because when I read about the issues that you're dealing with, it sounds so much like Denver. And I think you probably answered this, but if you were going to give, if the mayor of Denver came to you and said, David or Governor, what's your number one best idea for trying to reduce homelessness? What would the number one thing be?
It's really about focusing on housing first. It's about being committed to finding permanent supportive housing for those who can't afford it, and placing a roof over people's heads, because then, you know, many in the homeless community have substance abuse and mental health issues. And if you can't get them into permanent housing, you know, those other issues will continue to plague them and make it very difficult for them to become part of the larger community.
Governor David Ige of Hawaii. I think you're going to be done being governor in when?
Well,
2 more years?
my term ends in 2022. So
Yeah.
I just was reelected in 2018 and looking forward to a second term. You know, I really enjoy working in the Western Governors Association because it's bipartisan.
Right.
You know, we focus on our similarities rather than our differences. And all of us, Democrats and Republicans alike, are really committed to working together to find solutions, to share ideas amongst a broad cross-section and very different kind of communities. But I really get empowered by sharing of ideas here at the Western Governors Association.
Well, I really appreciate your taking the time to be chairman, because it is additional work for you. And I think you and I both probably find it so interesting how a lot of issues, how you might initially have thought were unique or nearly unique to Hawaii, were actually problems that affect all of us in the West. So thank you so much for being here. Thanks for your chairmanship of WGA, and enjoy your retirement from that part of the job and just being governor now. Thanks so much for being here.
Absolutely. Mahalo and aloha.
Aloha indeed to you. We'll be right back on The Ross Kaminsky Show.